Welcome to Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Still not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the 47th time. However, for the first time, I am watching this show through a specific lens. I'm looking for those good sci-fi messages. You know, those messages that sci-fi as a genre is uniquely positioned to do. Messages that hold up a mirror to society, show us how awful or awesome we can be. Messages that give us hope things can be better in the future, or messages that just show us how to be better humans to one another.
Brent, this week we're watching The Fifth Race. Now, my prediction for this one is pretty specific. It's that we're going to meet a new race that will somehow be the fifth one, even though I think I came up with 7 or 8 off the top of my head last week, but somehow it'll be the fifth one.
Well, let's count the races. Let's count the races. There's foot, horse, sack, 3-legged,
wheelbarrow. Got those? Yeah. I don't think it's going to be like a race, like a runny race or a drivey race or whatever, because we're in the middle of some big episodes, and I feel like to take a sidetrack to be like, hey, we're going to go to a planet and go run a race, and there'll be some stakes tied to it. It doesn't fit the tone of where we are right now.
That's fair. It's also not season 7, which is usually where you get that episode.
We have 8 episodes to wrap this whole series up, but we have to come up with 22. So race, we'll do that.
Well, Jeff, that is your prediction for what this episode is about. I do want to take a moment and just remind people from last week's episode, sitting right back here behind me. The audio folks can't see this. Which way to go my finger? Anyway, right there, Mickey is holding on to a little piece of paper on which I wrote down a prediction last week. At some point in today's episode, when it is appropriate, I will pull that prediction out and I'll share it, and we'll see if I was right.
Okay.
And if I am, I get to bring my crown from Babylon 5.
Which people love.
Oh, it's their favorite thing. It's like their absolute favorite thing from Babylon 5.
And we dust that bad boy off. People celebrate. Hey, Brent, let's get into this thing. Why don't you tell us about The Fifth Race?
Yes, well, this is the 15th episode, season 2, The Fifth Race. Original air date, December 16th, 1998. So it's about a 6-week break from Halloween. This episode is written by frequent director and writer Robert C. Cooper. Jeff, do you remember this name? We have talked about it before.
We have. I recognize the name. Okay, he becomes a big deal, right, at some point. He
does. He eventually becomes head writer of the show. Producer, executive producer, very much works his way up. He also will be a co-creator of the 2 spinoff series. Big deal in this universe. This is one of his episodes. Everything else I have to tell you, just going to have to wait for the end. So with that, it is time for us to go watch this episode. If you're just joining us for the first time, how this works is Jeff and I are going to watch the episode together right now. If you're watching a video, whether it's YouTube or Patreon, you're going to get to watch us do the reaction to this episode in real time. If you're on Patreon, you get the full unedited version. Head over to patreon.com/Babylon5 first, or check the show notes for the most updated URL. If you're on YouTube, you'll get the cut up, copyright compliant. Well, we try to stay copyright compliant here at this stuff. We're not trying to cheat anybody out of anything. Keep with the heart of everything that we're trying to do. We'll do that here on YouTube.
If you're listening to this on a podcasting app, though, you're going to do something pretty cool that no one else gets to do. You're going to head into the gate. You're going to be in the future waiting for us. We'll get there in probably, about 50 some odd minutes, something like that. So just chill. For you, it'll feel more like about 20 seconds. And when we arrive, I'm going to share my for the first time reactions. Brent's going to share any sci-fi messages that he might have found. And I can't wait to do that. So Brent, let's start The Fifth Race.
Chevron 7 locked.
All right, Jeff, welcome back to all of our audio listeners.
I waved at them like they can see that. Look at that. Hi.
So we have just gotten done watching The Fifth Race, you for the very first time, me for Jeff. This honestly might be the 147th time. What you got for us?
I've complained quite a bit, especially around the Thor's episodes. So our entryway to the Asgardians. Are they called the Asgards or the Asgardians?
They're the Asgards.
Asgards. Okay.
Yeah. As the Asgardians, I think, is a play on words for Marvel. So.
Okay, and there's a little connotation to that one as well. So we'll go with the Asgards. But our introduction to the Asgards, I felt like those episodes were just, the pacing was awful and it was slow and whatever. This episode flew by. Like, we're in the moment where Jack doesn't have the database in his head anymore and he's talking to the Asgards, and I'm just like, is this the end? Like, already? We're here?
Did you when that happened, did you look at the bar to see how far we had gone in the episode?
As soon as I had that thought, I looked down, I'm like, what?
There's a lot of time left in this episode.
Yeah. It's wild. What I love about this episode, one of the many things I love about this episode, kind of hinting maybe where the ranking of this thing might go, by the way, it took everything that we know up to this point and just up-leveled it, right? Like, everything came together and it opened a lot of doors for us into things. So what we know now that we didn't know before, some dumb stuff like the power source for the staffs are pretty powerful and can be used for other stuff. But we know now where the gates came from, who built them, very, very appropriately named, on brand name of the Ancients. We know more about the four that we learned about in Torment of Tantalus. Like, we knew there was this thing of four, but we didn't have a lot of information on it. And so now we know the four, and we know there will be five with the humans. And what was interesting, what I liked about the four as well, and we talked about at the beginning of this thing, the way this show just handholds a viewer through the whole thing. The Asgards start talking about the Alliance of Four, and they say, the Asgards, and Jack goes, that's you. He says, the Nox, oh, we've met them.
Yeah.
Then they say, the Furlings, oh, haven't met them.
Right.
And the Ancients. So, like, just there you go, on a silver platter, everything you need to know. But I loved how they had one of them, the Furlings, that is new. So now we have a door that's open that I don't know when we'll go through it, right? But it's like you've talked about in the past, Stargate is not a serialized show where everything feeds into everything, but it plants these seeds that some get picked up and a lot don't. This is one that will at some point. They've plopped it down.
It's not, there is not a master plan for where the story is going overall. That does not exist with Stargate, but they never forget what happened in previous episodes. And sometimes they're like, hey, remember when that thing happened that one episode? Let's follow up on that and see where they are today. Or, hey, we're going to plant this thing. And that's the reason why I think I hold Thor's hammer in such high regard, because it's the first time we ever hear about the Asgard. And then even Thor's chair. I love Thor's chair. I think Thor's chair is better than Thor's hammer, but I love that episode. That's solving the puzzle and trying to get things through and all that. It wasn't until watching with you that I went, yeah, I kind of get the pacing issues with that, but I know where it leads, and this is the first, I will say the first payoff of where that goes to.
Like, even just this payoff, I know if I went back and watched Thor's hammer, I would see it in a different way just from this. And they even referenced Thor's hammer, like that. They did such a great job in this episode of just pointing to all of the things that they needed to. We know more Stargates now. We know there's another galaxy. What was it called? The Ida Galaxy? Mm-hmm. That's where the Asgards were on a planet called Gothala, I think, or something like that. Othala. Okay. And that's the 8th chevron that comes up that'll pop you into a galaxy far, far away.
So on that level right there, Jeff, this is obviously the first time we're learning that you can add an 8th chevron and that it sends us to a galaxy far, far away, as you say. This is a notable change from the movie, though.
Okay.
I do believe I told you in our pilot episode that we did, one of the changes is that the planet they went to in the movie, which we later know as Abydos, in the movie they say is in a different galaxy on the other side of the universe.
Okay.
The show retcons it to being, actually, it's the closest planet to us in the Gate network, which is why it worked. And everything that's happening for us is all here in the Milky Way. We're all right here in the Milky Way. And this is the first time we actually are leaving the galaxy to go elsewhere. So
stay with us. We'll be right back.
Before we gate into the rest of this episode, did you know you're missing most of the content from this podcast? Stargate SG-1 for the first time has an active and exciting Patreon that you can join right now by clicking the link in the show notes. Not only will you get access to the full, unedited podcast and reaction videos, you'll also be able to join a growing, vibrant, maybe even an intergalactic community. Subscribers even get access to all of our content from Babylon 5 for the first time. Don't miss out on this content and the amazing people. Just click the link in the show notes. Tilk thinks you should do it right now.
Indeed.
The movie is the canon until it's not.
Pretty much, yeah. Until the show says something else. Right?
And then you just go with that until the show says something else again. And then you just go with that.
Pretty much.
It was interesting because I was talking during the episode about this seemed like a really cool way of giving the SGC some upgrades. Because Jack was going through and just, computer binary coding a bunch of stuff. At one point, Jack said that he had altered the core machine language for everything that was going on there. But I got the impression at the end that all of that got wiped out and they're just back to normal. Like he did all that work to get to the Asgards. It was kind of cool. Even the Asgards were impressed. Like this database gets pulled into Jack's head and it immediately says, you shouldn't have this. I'm going to make you go to the place where you can get fixed. Like,
we're going to send you to a place for help. By the way, they didn't send you to the ancients because the ancients have moved on from this galaxy or from this whatever a long time ago. So we're going to send you to our friends, the Asgard. They'll be able to help you.
Yeah, they'll know exactly what's going on and they'll hook you up really fast.
Because they didn't leave.
Yeah, they're still around, but they're on their way out. Like they're kind of moving out of the neighborhood at least. I thought it was interesting. They had the little thing in their hand because the Gould, right? They have that, but it's a thing they wear. And with the Asgard, it was like part of his hand. And
where did the Gould get the idea for something like that?
Exactly. As I say, it makes me wonder. Like we have these four that are united. They're ancient, right? They go back a long, long ways. They've more like physically evolved and all those things. Like the Gould, gosh, we just got to make this about, I'm going to have to use a Babylon 5 comparison.
Oh, yes.
Because it is that where there are the first ones and the ancients that happened. And then there were younger races that came and those ones kind of helped bring them along. And what I feel like is this like 3-step thing of we have like the Asgards and the Nox and maybe the Furlings over here that are just about to take that hop beyond the rim, like the Shadows and Vorlons did. Then one step back are the Gould, who are close to that, right? They'd be like almost the Minbari in the thing. They've been around a long time. They worked with these guys. They want to be them in a lot of ways. Just they're evil, they're hardcore, they're blah, 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 but they're trying to mimic things like with the hand stuff.
And their brains are all messed up from the sarcophaguses that they keep using.
That just corrupt them, which is why you have the Tok'ra who aren't the corrupted ones and just the differences there. And then you go a step evolutionarily back and then you have humans, which again, in the Babylon 5 comparison, humans are the new player, on the galactic stage. And it's the same thing. That's a pretty common thing in all of sci-fi that we're the new ones. But like, I can see this evolutionary progression, and the conflict is the Gould don't want competition from like Earth and the humans, these up and comers, and they want to supplant and replace these four that were there before. And so that's like the overall conflict of Stargate, and everyone's going to get pulled into the middle of it. And that's going to be kind of the overarching piece of until it's not, but for quite a while, I feel like that's going to be kind of where it goes. Yeah, this was a great episode. I have a lot of notes, but some of them are just like, yeah, that's the thing, whatever. I had a question here and then it answered the question. It was kind of, I think the last note that I have, and I talked about this a little bit during the episode, Jack, it's SG-1, heads out to a planet without Daniel and Jack. They got some other major kind of, taking command. Things don't go well. Jack's able to help get them back using the database information. Can come back and they're like, hey, that was awesome. Who did that thing? And Sam asked that, and they're like, oh, Jack. And she's like, for real? Like, Jack did this? Really? In the same breath, Tilk just walks up calmly, stoic, well, just big and confident, but with this softness to him, very much like a croissant, right? Where he's just like, it's hard and kind of crispy, but just flaky and fluffy on the inside. And he's like, I am sorry, O'Neill. We could not help you. Like he just immediately connected to him with compassion. And then that happened later. Jack dials in the 8 chevrons. He's going to go to who knows where. And Jack's like, or Teal'c's just like, I will go with you. I don't know where we're going. This will likely be a one-way trip, and I'll go because I'm here for you. And I've loved the relationships that have built up in this thing. And it was just a lot of it's around Teal'c, but I just really think it was a really beautiful expression of those relationships.
Well, and Teal'c is one of those people that doesn't speak unless he has something to say, and his something to say are always meaningful and loaded. So whenever he gives you something, there's definitely something there to discuss.
Speaking of discussing things, I'm curious what sci-fi messages you pulled out of this one.
You know, it's an interesting piece. For so much of this episode, there really wasn't much. You know, it was a fun episode, cool episode, lots of fun to watch. One of the criticisms we often give this show is that it presents an issue, it says something, and it just doesn't discuss it, doesn't do anything with it. What I'm about to say is they just sort of said something and presented it. They didn't really discuss it, and they didn't have to because it was just there, and it rings all the way true. Of course, I'm talking about the very end of the episode when he does meet the Asgards. And, you know, the litmus test we kind of use for this sci-fi messages, a mirror to society, treating people better, and a hope for the future. Does it hit kind of one of those 3 pieces? We've sort of boiled it down to. When the Asgard sits there and looks at Jack and goes, you have great potential. He says that at that point. You have great potential. There is something I think that has to be true that we believe that about humanity. Now, I know that anytime we start talking about humanity and humanity is the hope of the galaxy, which I say a lot, we always get the comments where people are like, I'm so tired of the trope that humans are just the saviors of everything. I get what you're saying. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying here and misunderstand where I'm. First of all, I never get tired of that. I just don't. Because it speaks to where we can go, to what we can be, not what we are, but where we can get to. The idea that the potential for good that exists within the human race, as much crap as we have in our world, as much crap that humans put out there into the universe and put out there, the idea that we can also do really amazing stuff and that we can be this force for good is so inspiring to me that I never get tired. Also, there's just hey, these are our stories and we have to have a person to relate to. So that's why we get to be the ones who go out and do that.
Real quick on that, because I think when you were talking, I drew this parallel to Star Trek. One of the things we talk about with Star Trek is it paints that picture of a brighter future. You know, when we started the Babylon 5 thing, we called the sci-fi messages Star Trek messages for that reason. But what I loved about the construction of the lore in the story was we had to completely fall apart. We had to go through hell in order to get to the place where, where we could, be the Federation and do those things. And I feel like the same thing now is set up for Stargate, where we know that there's international stuff going on, where there's, it's just the international security stuff where we don't really trust people or whatever. We saw that back.
We literally saw it last week in the last episode.
Well, the one, as I say in the last one, it's not just international, it's inside. Like we got dirty players here. So we're going through a version or the beginnings of our hell. But now we have these Asgards who can look at us in a more galactic, bigger picture way. And they're like, yeah, like you got a lot of potential here.
You're not there yet, but you could go there. Gould aren't going to go there. They don't have that potential for good, but you guys really, really have that potential. We've been studying for years, so we really know a lot about you right now.
Yeah. And I wonder too, like the Gould, because the Gould are a faction of the symbiotes or whatever they're called. So I want to talk about the symbiotes here, where I think they probably had great potential or still have great potential as well. The thing is, and when I worked in professional wrestling, I used to help teach at one of the schools, and I didn't teach how to wrestle. They didn't want that, but how to talk and how to develop your character and things like that. But I remember we'd have these people come in who had a ton of potential, great athletes, great charisma, all these things. Pro wrestling is a very different thing than any other sport. It doesn't translate 1-to-1. It's hard. And I came up with this thought, this kind of way of thinking, that you can only have potential for so long. At some point, you're great or you just suck. And I think that's like the Gould being in that my 3-step example, being a step ahead of humanity or Tauri, they've gone to suck. Humanity still has the opportunity to go to great.
I love Jack's response. He says, you got to know we're out there now. And he says, we might not be ready for a lot of this, but you guys got to know we're doing our best. Looking at last week's episode and the previous episodes where there's international issues, there's domestic issues, there's all these sorts of things. Listen, we're trying. We kind of suck, but we're trying. We keep getting on the diet and we keep cheating and we keep failing, but we keep getting right back on and we're not giving up and we keep trying. And you know, that idea, it's okay not to be perfect. The progress, you don't have to have this constant progress. You can have setbacks. You don't have to wait to be perfect to get out there. He says, no, we're here now. And, you know, all of those pieces, just again, the hope. And it's what's so inspiring about this one is it's not us saying it. It's someone else who is further down the path than we are looking at us going, you guys could be it.
Mm-hmm.
The 5th race. Wow. Not just another race, the 5th race to join an alliance. How many races are out there? That's right. It's a big deal with all of that. So that being said, Jeff, I'm going to make a change to the format of this show.
Okay.
For a season and change now, we've been rating this thing on a scale of 0 to 5 chevrons.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've received lots of messages over the last season and a half since we've been doing this show, and I'm going to make a change based on a lot of those messages.
Okay, wow.
But because it just makes a lot of sense. This should not be 0 to 5 chevrons. This should be 0 to 7 chevrons.
Duh. Yeah.
This literally is the sci-fi message that we look for. This is it through and through. Jeff, like the show, this episode gets 8 chevrons.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
All the way through.
This is the one. I got to tell you, too, I couldn't agree more with that. I love that we went there. And I also love that we're going to make it 0 to 7, because if you're a 7 chevron episode, that means you're bringing it home.
Oh, I love it. It's not just you don't talk about it, you're out there, whatever. You actually brought it home. I love it. I love it.
I think this will be great. Excellently done. Well said. Yeah. 8 chevrons through and through.
All right, Jeff. Well, I gave it 8 chevrons. The real question is, where does this episode go in our ranking? Because we are creating the definitive 100% completely accurate ranking of the episodes of Stargate SG-1 Season 2. Jeff, it is up to you. I do the ranking, I do the rating, you do the ranking. They're playing. They've just decided to start playing.
Now's the time. The time.
Jeff, our current top 5 as it sits right now in the number 1 spot is our Season 1, Season 2 duology episode, Within the Serpent's Grasp and In the Serpent's Lair. Number 2 is the episode called Secrets. That's where we met Sam's father. Number 3, Thor's Chariot. That was an early Asgard episode. 4, Spirits, which we had just a couple weeks ago. A lot higher than I thought it would be, but I totally get why it's there. And number 5, The Tok'ra, parts 1 and 2. Jeff, where do you rank this episode, The 5th Race?
Wouldn't it be awesome if I ranked it 5? It was 5th because it was the 5th race. I think that's kind of poetic.
No.
You know, maybe and poetry is a great thing. Maybe I should. No, it's number 1, Brent. This is the number 1 episode of the season and the series to date.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong there at all. All right. Well, with that, this episode is going to have a button put on it. But wait.
You got the prediction.
There's more, because at this point, it is time to come back to this prediction, which has been sitting back there for a long time. Jeff, I just would like to open this.
Previously on Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Hey, Jeff, I'm writing a prediction right now. And then a lot of time goes by. And I'm going to put it back here. Now, whoop, and now the conclusion.
I'm putting it in here. I hope you can see it. Go ahead and read it there, Jeff.
The 5th race will be the new number 1. What? How could you possibly know that?
Figure. But I would like to claim my crown yet again.
You have earned it.
Okay. Hey, speaking of predictions, Jeff, it is time for you to take a look at next week's episode title and do your best. That I just get to laugh at you every week because, woo. This next episode, Jeff, is called A Matter of Time.
I don't know what it's going to be about, but I think I know what the storytelling mechanism, like kind of the overall thing, is going to be. There's going to be multiple SG-1s from multiple points in time coming together to solve one problem that like broke the timeline up. It's all a matter of time.
So it's into the Spider-Verse, huh?
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of those episodes every sci-fi show does at some point. Voyager did it. Prodigy did it.
Mm-hmm.
Picard did it.
Next Jet TNG did it.
Battlestar Galactica. I don't think. Yeah, there's some who don't deal with time travel, but the ones that deal with time travel, which is most out there, yeah, at some point. Okay, so you think it's a time one? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. But we have already done in this one multiple universes. So Jeff thinks we're going into the Spider-Verse. Got it.
Yeah, I don't think it's multiple universes. I think it's multiple points in time.
Okay. Well, Jeff, you are a good guesser. And that means that it is time to say goodbye. We have come yet to the end of another episode here, right here on Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Thank you guys so much for joining us. A phenomenal episode this was. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a rating and review. Please share this podcast with someone that you know who loves Stargate SG-1 or someone else who out there who needs to get into the gate for the very first time, like my friend Jeff over there. So for that, we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much. Remember, you have all the potential in the world to be amazing. So you should go be amazing out there.
Hey, Brent.
Yes, Jeff.
I was just thinking that Corvus can go to the flatulence of hoc est excitando spectaculum.
Jeff, for crying out loud.